We know that children with learning disabilities like dyslexia have incredible strengths. But when it comes to learning to read, write, and spell, they need additional tools and support. That's why I'm excited to share a new virtual tutoring app designed to make effective literacy education engaging and accessible for kids in 1st through 4th grades. Mighty Doodle, built around the Orton-Gillingham tutoring method, uses handwriting, recognition, voice feedback, and gamified lessons to keep kids motivated to practice reading and spelling every day. What I appreciate most about Mighty Doodle is its multi-sensory approach. The app incorporates sight, touch, sound, and even movement to help children build literacy skills in a way that just really resonates with them. If you've been searching for tools that support kids with dyslexia or other learning challenges, Mighty Doodle could be the answer. Research shows it's not only improving literacy skills, but it's also boosting kids' confidence, resilience, and even standardized test scores. Download Mighty Doodle on the App Store today and start your free 7-day trial. Subscriptions are available for $14.95 a month or $149 per year, and every annual subscription purchase helps support their mission of literacy equity. This program is designed exclusively for iPads. Don't wait. Give your child the tools they need to succeed by subscribing to Mighty Doodle today. Visit MIGHTYDOODLE.com for more information or download the app directly from the Apple App Store. Hey there, it's Debbie. So I'm doing something different over this winter holiday break. Rather than release replay episodes, I'm gifting some bonus conversations that have never been made available to anyone outside of my Differently Wired Club before. I love these conversations. I thought they were too powerful not to share. Each of them is kind of a thoughtful masterclass with a brilliant leader whose work and wisdom has a profound impact on the world and on our lives as parents of neurodivergent kids. In today's episode, we're revisiting a powerful and deeply supportive conversation with Dr. Stuart Shanker, a leading expert on self-regulation and the author of Self-Reg, How to Help Your Child and You Break the Stress Cycle and Successfully Engage with Life. And we have had Dr. Shanker on the show before, so you might have heard that, but this is a very different conversation. Dr. Shanker shares his warmth, compassion, and deep understanding of the challenges faced by neurodivergent kids and our families. Together, we explored the brain science behind self-regulation, the impact of stress on behavior, and practical strategies to help both kids and parents cultivate greater self-reflection and self-awareness. This is a conversation filled with insights and tools that will leave you feeling seen and supported. It's been months since this club visit, and I'm still reflecting on and using what I learned from this incredible conversation. I'm so excited for you to listen and thankful to Dr. Shanker for making it available to us. Also, these author and expert visits have a different vibe than my typical podcast interviews because the format and the length is less structured. And I host these special conversations every month as part of my Differently Wired Club community. So if you enjoyed this conversation and you want more like it, definitely consider joining us. You can learn more and join anytime by going to tiltparenting.com/club. So now enjoy my conversation with Dr. Stuart Shanker. I'm so pleased and honored to have Stuart Shanker here with us today. So the formalities. Stuart Shanker is a distinguished research professor, emeritus, I don't know how to say that, emeritus of philosophy and psychology. Emeritus, thank you. Okay, thank you. The founder and visionary of the MEHRIT Centre Limited and Self-Reg Global Incorporated. Self-Reg, How to Help Your Child and You Break the Stress Cycle and Successfully Engage with Life, which is the book we're discussing today and have read this month, has garnered enthusiastic reviews and media attention throughout North America. It's also been published in the UK, the United States, Poland, Germany, China, South Korea, Japan, the Netherlands, Georgia, and the Czech Republic. His latest books are Self-Reg Schools, a handbook for educators, and Reframed, Self-Reg for a Just Society, which we talked about on the podcast actually a couple of years ago. Over the past decade, Stuart has served as an advisor on early child development to government organizations across Canada and the US and in countries around the world. During this period, he became increasingly interested in the impact of excessive stress on child development and behavior. His 5-step self-reg model, the Shanker method, is a powerful process for understanding and managing stress in children, youth, and adults. He commits considerable time to bringing the research and science of self-reg to parents, early childhood educators, teachers, educational leaders, health practitioners, and communities through presentations, masterclasses, online courses, webinars, publications, social media, and blogs, and also apparently generously sharing his expertise with communities like ours. So thank you and welcome, Stuart. And is there anything that your bio doesn't cover that you would want us to know before we dive in?
No, but I do have one request for you, Debbie.
Yes.
Some of your questions are a little, they're a little demanding. And so there is science that can help clarify some of this. So I need you to tell me as we go through this, a little more science, too much science. Okay?
Yeah, I love that. Okay, that sounds great. I actually wanted to start with I'm not going to go in order, but I was looking through the questions I sent you. And I wanted to start just kind of as a way to set the tone, that the adolescent mental health crisis and mental health of kids in general has intensified according to, what we're...
Well, it has.
Yeah, since your book was written. And so just would love to know your thoughts on the state of kids and teen mental health and how it has influenced your work.
Well, I thought I could retire a few years ago, but things have gotten sort of out of control. We are seeing an anxiety epidemic in teens around the world. It is filtering down now to children. It is causing medical health problems in young kids that we've never seen before. For example, things like ulcers or heart problems. And for me, myself, and for this group, it's been especially hard on neurodivergent kids. We have seen just a huge spike in internalizing and externalizing disorders in neurodivergent kids. So, yeah, this is pretty serious. Why is it happening? Do you want me to talk about why it's happening?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so essentially, there are three primary causes. The first one is the obvious one. So that's significantly heightened stress load. And I don't think I need to spend too much time on that. Since COVID, there has been a dramatic increase in parental stress and societal stress. And of course, all this filters down onto our kids. We can talk more about that later if you want. I really want to get to points 2 and 3. I think they're the critical ones for this group. The second cause is an explosion of maladaptive modes of self-regulation. So you guys have read the book, and we draw this distinction between self-regulation and self-control. Now you need to draw a distinction between maladaptive and healthy modes of self-regulation. What that means is self-regulation refers to how we manage stress in simplest terms, how we attempt to restore from the cost of stress. A little later today, I want to spend a couple of minutes on the definition of stress because several of the questions show that we need to clarify that. But let's just pause for a second on maladaptive. What does that mean? So we're living in a time when there has been just, as anywhere you go, there are maladaptive modes. And what that means is that there are ways for the kid to suppress their sensations, suppress their anxiety, we'll say, but it does not address the causes of their heightened stress. So let me give you an example. A kid can deal with their anxiety by drinking or smoking marijuana, or they can spend hours on a video game or some screen thing. And the reason these are maladaptive is because they are not recruiting the neurochemicals that turn off stress. Mm-hmm. They are masking the effects of the stress. The stress itself, whatever was causing that, has remained untouched. So in technical terms, which we're going to get to in 1 second, there is a specific neurochemical that turns off the stress response, that turns off stress neurons. And that chemical is oxytocin. So we'll come back to that 1 second. What these kids are, what kids are doing is instead they are recruiting dopamine. And the problem with this is the dopamine gives them energy, psychic energy. You can keep going, but it doesn't turn off the stress neurons. So all of the activities that you can think of that are maladaptive modes of self-regulation are basically ways of triggering the release of dopamine. And so what happens is the kid is basically, they're keeping themselves going by, imagine pushing a button, getting more and more dopamine. We have lots of studies on this showing us examples in animal behavior, animals getting hooked on dopamine to the detriment of their well-being. So the third cause is an oxytocin deficit. And this is a little bit of science, but it's interesting. So in the very center of the brain, in a tiny little nucleus within the hypothalamus, there are these neurons, which are the stress neurons. So the kid is under stress. These neurons get activated. And what they do is they set off a wave to give the kid energy. That's what the stress response is, trying to recruit energy because you're burning too much. In this little tiny part of the hypothalamus, it's called the periventricular nucleus, little tiny spot, there are a bunch of oxytocin neurons. And those oxytocin neurons turn off the adjacent stress neurons. It's an amazing discovery. So what's going on here? Well, in this anxiety epidemic, what we're seeing is heightened stress, heightened maladaptive modes, meaning dopamine seeking, and an oxytocin deficit. So now the question is, well, where do they get oxytocin from? And there's lots of ways you can get oxytocin. You can get it from nature. You can get it from music. You can get it from cooking. But the primary way to get oxytocin is from another human being. We have little receptors in our skin. So when you cuddle your child, when you hug your little kid, what you're doing is activating oxytocin. And that oxytocin, the reason why the hug calms down the child is because you are triggering the release of oxytocin, which turns off the stress hormones, turns off the stress neurons. They're called corticotropin hormones. Okay, here's the key. What Debbie asked me is to address the problem primarily in teens. When the kid becomes a teen, they turn to their peers instead of their parents for co-regulation. But if all your peers are also overstressed, which is the case today, what's happening is that instead of getting that boost of oxytocin from your friend, you're getting more stress. They are co-stressing instead of co-regulating. So what do they need? Well, in this situation, first and foremost, they need us. They need us, their parents, teachers, self-reg adults to trigger the oxytocin that is missing. So look, I can tell you case after case. We just dealt with one last week, a teen that was in huge trouble, a really good kid. No, sorry, it's about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Really good kid, fell in with a group that was self-medicating to deal with their stress. Things just totally fell apart. And the mom, single mom in this case, who is well-versed in self-reg, the way she dealt with it was soothing, giving the kid the oxytocin, and then actually moving to remove the child from this, troubling environment. But the key was the kid needed that parental, the kid was about 16, I think. So you'd think old enough that they don't need that parental hug. Well, there isn't such an age. And the reason they need the hug and constant hugs and constant soothing, soft eyes, all of these things, even a soft voice triggers oxytocin in receptors that line the middle ear. So that's a sort of long answer to what you thought was an easy question, but it's actually a tough one.
No, it's fascinating. And a couple of things. First of all, someone just mentioned, are there ways to trigger oxytocin for kids that don't like touch sensations? So it sounds like you said a soothing voice, so it doesn't have to be the physical touch. Any other strategies?
That's great. I don't know what that is. That's an absolutely great point. So if you've got a touch-aversive kid, so first of all, I'll just take my own older child. So he was very, very touch-aversive, but not to all kinds of touches. So you want to experiment to see if there's a kind of touch that the child who is touch sensitive likes. So in my older boy who's on the spectrum, what he liked was scratching. And he also liked, the head thing. It's like a whisk. He loved that. And basically what that's doing, the reason why it has that instantly calming effect is because of the release of oxytocin. Now, sometimes with some kids, and here I'll take my younger kid, 3 years younger, also neurodivergent, he was very touch aversive. But what he did like was a weighted blanket. And here he was self-regulating with the weighted blanket, but not by himself. And that's the key. So it wasn't a case of, say, sending him to his room so he could lie under the blanket. We had to be with him and do exactly what Debbie just said, which was that low, soft voice, so that he was getting that calming, releasing the oxytocin while he was getting the pressure from the blanket.
We'll be right back after this quick break. So here we are in that season of the year. Shorter days, colder weather, and of course, all the illnesses and effects of dry winter air. But I've learned that keeping indoor humidity at 40 to 60% can help relieve symptoms like stuffy noses, dry skin, and chapped lips. So this year, I'm tackling the dry air, congestion, and the rest of it with Vicks humidifiers plus VapoSteam and VapoPads throughout the winter months. The only humidifier brand that combines a cough suppressant, menthol vapors, and hydrating mists. I gotta say, Vicks VapoPads totally take me back to my childhood in a good way. There's something so comforting and calming about the scent of Vicks menthol. And it's not just about soothing dry skin and nasal congestion. If you've got a cough, Vicks VapoSteam with camphor delivers therapeutic mist throughout the night for lasting relief. I haven't used a humidifier since I was a little girl. Back then, I remember having this massive machine in the corner of our dining room, so I wasn't sure what to expect. But the Vicks Cool Relief Humidifier is super easy to use, and it doesn't require much attention at all. Just fill it up when it's empty and replace the VapoPads as needed. Find the Vicks Cool Relief along with VapoSteam and a variety of VapoPads on Amazon. There's a special offer on Amazon on the Vicks Cool Relief Humidifier where you can get 20% off your purchase. Just go to Amazon.com and search Vicks VUL600 Cool Relief Humidifier. It has a blue tank with white in the center. Be sure to click the coupon to get the discount. You'll need this for wintertime comfort. Hey, it's Debbie. I absolutely love making this show and sharing conversations about how we can better support our amazing neurodivergent kids. I also like to keep it real. Raising complex kids can be messy, lonely, and just plain hard. Even when we think we've got it figured out, something new can send us spiraling back into overwhelm. That's why more than 5 years ago, I created the Differently Wired Club. It was the very first membership community of its kind, a space designed specifically for parents raising neurodivergent kids to come together for hope, support, and strategies that truly work. Over the years, many other communities have popped up, but I'm just going to say it. The Differently Wired Club is still unlike any other online community you'll find. Why? Because it is built around connection. I go live in the club 4 to 5 times a month to answer questions, share insights, and dig into what matters most to you. I have to say that new members are always a little surprised when they join an office hours call and find themselves hanging out with me and a small group of parents. But yes, I am in there because this is my passion, and being in community with you is exactly why I created the club. There is so much more to the club, including a packed vault of masterclasses and themed deep dives, plus monthly calls with experts, but I'll stop there for now, and I'll leave you with this. No matter your child's age or profile, if you are feeling depleted, overwhelmed, and out of strategies in your parenting life, the Differently Wired Club can help you reset, refocus, and start seeing positive shifts for your family. Learn more and sign up at tiltparenting.com/club. That's tiltparenting.com/club.
Your explanation of what's happening and the maladaptive coping strategies and this oxytocin deficit, it just made me think that, we're hearing so much about young people, especially autistic young people who are in burnout. And would that be a direct result of...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a direct result. Yes, it's a direct result.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So there's so many aha moments that I'm having and had as I read your book as well. So one of the questions that came in is, how can parents better identify their neurodivergent child's true stressors, especially when they may differ from what we think they are? So any ideas or strategies for reading those signals more effectively?
Okay, so we've all gone through this, right? And some of the things that are stressors are, like unless you were the parent of a neurodivergent kid, you would think they're bizarre, but they're not. I'm trying to think of, I just had an example, like for my older boy, the one who's on the spectrum, my wife, we have a bin of the food for the dog, and she keeps on leaving the lid up, and that's a huge stress for him. To the point of, and he's 22, and kind of freaks out. So, so you learn, right, trial and error, but I wanted to explain what exactly a stress is so that it helps us when we are becoming stress detectives. Why would something like, I don't know, an odor or a particular sound, why would they be so stressful for my kid? And how do I know? So what exactly is a stress? Well, the definition, the strict definition is anything that triggers a physiological response that burns energy in order to maintain homeostasis. Okay, now let me explain that in English. Okay, so the example I think I gave in the book was cold weather. So cold weather is a stressor. And what it does is skin receptors send a message to the hypothalamus again. And what it does is it releases a form of adrenaline, which raises heart rate, raises breathing rate, raises blood pressure, and then it triggers a physical reaction, little micro vibrations, contractions in the muscles, which generate heat. The key here for all stress, whatever the stress is the kid's heart rate goes up, the kid's breathing goes up, the kid's blood pressure goes up, arteries dilate, and so on. Why? Why is a stimulus causing this? Well, a stress, any stress, is a threat to homeostasis, a threat to the sort of smooth functioning of some system. It's an internal threat. And how do we respond to threat? Well, it doesn't matter. Debbie, I need you to tell me if this is clear enough. It doesn't matter if it's an internal threat or an external threat. What's an internal threat? Well, not enough water in the bloodstream, not enough glucose in the bloodstream, and so on. Those are internal threats. Mm-hmm. How do we respond? Well, why does our heart go up? Why does heart rate go up? Now remember, heart's a muscle, so as soon as heart rate goes up, our kid is burning energy. It goes up because they are now tensing muscles in their stomach, tensing muscles in their legs, their trunk, their arms. Maybe it's to protect themselves. Maybe it's to run away from the threat. Think about your kid. If you got an ND kid who is very sensitive to noise, and that kid has to he's forced to sit in a classroom, and because it's a stress, his whole body is tensing up. He wants to run, but he's not allowed to run. He's got to sit there. So it gets even worse. That triggers another system deep inside the brain. I won't go into it now. He is burning a huge amount of energy sitting there, knowing that he's not allowed to leave, knowing that he's not allowed to cry out for help. So if we could attach our child to the kinds of monitors that we used in the science lab, we would see exactly what's a stress. That's how we could tell. Because we were hooked it up to their brain and to their body, and we could see their heart go up. We could see their muscles getting tensed. Mm-hmm. How can you, as a parent, okay, so that's what a stress is. Now, how can you, as a parent, tell when they are clenching, when they are burning all this energy? Well, we have all kinds of signs. One of the signs is that the blood it's getting directed to the major muscles away from things like the face. So their face becomes pale. Mm-hmm. Their voice changes. Their pupils dilate. Pupil dilation is one of the biggest signs of a stress. There are experiments going on where parents are synchronizing an iPhone to an iWatch on the child um, to see when their heart rate spikes. I don't like it because it turns into a huge stress on the parent who's already extremely stressed. Having neurodivergent kids is a great deal of stress. Sorry, I just had a message come through, and the way they move changes because you become a little bit more jerky because of the muscles tensing. Their speech changes. It either speeds up or slows down. The pitch of their speech changes. It goes up. So there are lots of signs. What you're looking for are the signs that they are burning more energy. Now, there's a very simple test we can do to see if we're right. And that is, if I think something is a stressor, then if I remove it, will I see the signs of relaxation, the color coming back into their face, their body relaxing? And that's, so we can do these things as we're going along. If they're young, you can feel it. If they're young, you can feel their body becoming stiff, and that tells you right away, this is a big stress. Just think of, carrying your child when a stranger comes in and how rigid their body feels. Does that explain it well enough, Debbie?
Yeah, I think so. I'm getting visual reinforcement from people as well that is true. Yes, so thank you. I mean, again, the way you describe that also makes so much sense. And one of the things you write about is this buildup of all the things, right?
Yeah.
The buildup of stress in these kids. And you're burning energy to maintain. And then you think about kids, many neurodivergent kids have really crappy eating habits. They have really crappy sleeping habits and all those things. So they're burning where they would need more energy, but they're already at a deficit because of all of these other things. So it really makes me understand
the biggest challenge that we faced as parents of two neurodivergent kids is exactly what you just said. Getting them to eat healthy food, which meant not eating crap, which is, again, designed to trigger dopamine. But sleep was a real problem. And so we developed, a very, I want to say rigorous sleep routine. And one of the things I would say is I don't know how to put this. I don't like sleep training, okay? And I won't go into it here, but there are a lot of reasons why I don't like it. And the problem with a neurodivergent kid is that, these chronic sleep problems. Somebody just asked, do I like sleep medicine? No, I don't. And so what's happening is, one of the things that's useful here is an iWatch where you can track their sleep patterns and to see how much are they waking up, how much are they in deep sleep, etc. But for us, the real challenge was getting them to fall asleep. And so, you ask yourself a really simple question. Why is it so hard for them? Why, they're tired. I can see they're exhausted. Why don't, we've done everything according to the book, so we've read, so why can't they fall asleep? And that's a fairly obvious question, right? And the reason is because they are flooded with the half-life effects of adrenaline, of epinephrine, and it tells us when they had a bad night, it is telling us that the problem was during the day, that they built up so much adrenaline that at bedtime, no matter how tired they were, they couldn't fall asleep because of this.
Mhm.
So we worked on sleep hygiene by looking at what was going on during the day, and especially when they came home, and spotting the signs of, how stressed they had become. School is very hard on these kids, no matter how you. And so we would work to solve the sleep problem. We had to work with the teacher. And the last thing I'll say about this is that we found that teachers were remarkably uneducated about neurodivergent kids.
Mhm.
And so we had to be very patient and explain to them the things that they had to do to help the child during the day, so that we weren't getting this buildup. So, you look at what's happening at 9 p.m. when the real problem was what happened, from 8:30 a.m. till 3:30 p.m.
Mhm.
But sticking with it. Now, the one thing I'll say is that both of our kids are great sleepers now, and they became really good sleepers at around the age of 6, 7, 8. But it took a lot of self-reg to get them to that point. It doesn't happen quick.
Yeah. Yeah, there are no quick quote unquote fixes. This is all a long journey and process. A question came in about specifically educators, but I'm gonna come back to that. One of the questions we had sent in advance is, you wrote in the book, many kids don't even know what the physical sensation of calm feels like. So
No.
what thoughts do you have on how we can explicitly teach our complex kids, especially if they have sensory issues or interoception challenges, to recognize what it actually feels like in their bodies?
Okay, so you just grouped together 2 points. You grouped together 2 points, both of them important. Let's see if we can tease them apart. First of all, let's think about, we say calmness. Well, what exactly are we talking about? What exactly is calm? If you guys could come into the neural lab, what would you see when a child is calm? Well, you'd see a couple of things. First of all, we studied brainwaves. So when a kid is aroused, the brainwaves are like this, right? Really rapid, high spikes. When they go into a theta state, you get nice, slow waves. Okay, so that's one side of calm. Park that for a second. We hooked up these what are called GSR monitors, and we can measure stress, we can measure heart rate. And so what happens is, when the kid is calm, heart rate comes down. The electrical activity in the skin comes down. So we're seeing, when the kid is calm, all of these physiological indicators. Brain waves slow down, breathing slows down, heart rate comes down. Why? Why is all this happening? Well, it's happening because they have another neurochemical. So you've read a lot about the opioid crisis. Well, the human brain produces its own opioids called endogenous opioids. And what endogenous opioids do, okay, so these are natural neurochemicals, and we have receptors for them all through the brain and the body. What they do is they slow the brain down. They slow heart rate down. So there's an actual physiology of being calm. Now, one of the side effects of endogenous opioids is not only does it slow the brain down, not only does it lower heart rate, etc., it feels good. It releases pleasant sensations. This is an ancient mechanism. And so the idea was that a child will naturally calm in order to experience those pleasant sensations. Now, Debbie introduced the second point. The second point is a neurodivergent kid typically has what's called dysregulation. And that means they aren't feeling their sensations. They don't feel, so we have, there are 7 major circuits in the brain that produce these sensations. Some of them are pleasant, some of them are aversive. So, for example, anger produces an aversive sensation. What we see with neurodivergent kids is they don't pick up these sensations. They don't feel the sensation of, for example, fear produces an aversive sensation. They don't feel that sensation. Hence, we see our neurodivergent kids doing things which are terrifying because they're not picking up the interoceptive sensations telling them that are aversive, unpleasant sensations for fear, unpleasant sensations for anger, or pleasant sensations of being calm, pleasant sensations of being with a loved one. So why are they in dysreception? Because that's what Debbie's question was. How do we get them to register these sensations so that they know in an embodied sense what calmness feels like? That means so that they feel the effects of these opioids that only come with calmness. The answer is when they are in, I don't know how familiar you guys are with the Thayer matrix that we used. When they are in bottom right Thayer, meaning low energy, high tension, they're very aroused, it blocks interoception. It causes dysreception. So what we have to do is we do Self-Reg so that interoception comes back online so that they feel these sensations. You don't teach a child, this is what calmness feels like. You don't need to do that. It feels good. If it doesn't feel good, it's because the sensations are being blocked because they are still overstressed. When we go through Self-Reg and they experience these sensations, truly experience the sensations of calm, then they will come to you in one way or another and ask for help to get to those sensations. This will happen not just, okay, so I'll give you a great example. My older boy had a breakup with his girlfriend, a pretty serious breakup yesterday. And so he came home and my wife and I were downstairs watching the news and he came downstairs. So that's something that he never does. And he just sort of stood there. And what he was doing was he was asking for a hug, but not saying it. And so I said to him something like, oh, this is another question that came up that was great. So just give me one sec. Okay, so anyways, I stood up and I just gave him a hug and you could feel that the endogenous opioids as well as oxytocin were coming in. He was starting to feel better. Now, His younger brother came home, so 3 years younger. And these two were always fighting when they were children, fighting about, one triggering the other. And the younger brother went up and gave his older brother a hug. It happens. And so I know how frustrating this is, but it will happen, especially when they get older and start to register these sensations when these systems come back online. So you just keep on doing it and keep on doing it. And I promise you the point will come where they will know in their own idiosyncratic way when to come to you for help to get back to calm.
We'll be right back after this quick break.
I'll just share too that, my kiddo it's been 2.5 weeks since we dropped them off at university, and I haven't heard much. My husband games with my kids, so they've been hanging out, but I got a text. I got one of those hi mom texts, which I never like getting because they usually mean something's wrong, but my kid hadn't eaten all day. Like there was a lot of stuff going on. And so I was able to, from, another country, just over text, we jumped.
Great story.
Yeah, I was able to, I ordered food. Let's get some food in your system. And I just kind of reassured, but so I guess your son did. That's what my kid was doing, reaching out for that.
I love it. I just love it. That's a wonderful story.
So one other question, and then let's talk about siblings a little bit more, because that's a big issue for a lot of folks here. But if a child isn't registering yet or really identifying the pleasant sensations or that they are in calm, are they still, is their nervous system still getting the benefit of being in that state?
So yes, but okay, so let me just decide how much I want to go into here. Okay. There are systems, there are ancient survival systems at the very bottom of the brain, in the midbrain. And what's happened is our kids are pretty much in a constant state of survival. It's pretty tough for them. A lot of stresses. You can't turn off these systems you do Self-Reg and I now we're back and I triggered all these opioids. It doesn't work like that. So let's just stick with the example of the heart. Let's say that Debbie's son, who I'm guessing is like 21.
Yeah, 20. Mm-hmm.
20. Okay, so let's say that for a 20-year-old male, we want to see his resting heart rate at around, 62, 64, somewhere in there. That heart was racing yesterday, and that's why he couldn't eat. So what mom did was she brought it down, but she didn't bring it down to 64. She probably brought it down to 70. Now that's a huge gain, right? So that's a gain in energy that's not being expended. However, it's still, he's a young man. He's in a strange country, and beginning of October in Scotland, it's a bit cold already. They speak funny, so eventually what we want to do is get him down to 64. The key here is you can't go from, let's say he was at 90 when he finally reached out to her. You can't go from 90 down to 64. It doesn't work like that, but you can go down from 90 down to 70. And eventually what's going to happen is he's now going to start to recover. He's going to get in touch with these sensations. He's going to know what produces those sensations on his own. Plus, he's 20 years old, so he's had mom doing this for 19 years. So he has an embodied, I'll promise you, he's got an embodied awareness of what these sensations feel like. It's there. It's just sometimes when the stress gets really high, it blocks those sensations. It blocks the awareness. But the embodied awareness is there. And it's just a case of helping him, I mean, it's a great example. You can co-regulate with your kid. We used to use FaceTime when they were in public school with magical effects.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for answering that. So, because there are a lot of parents who have multiple kids, mixed neurotype kids that they're raising, one of the questions that you just touched upon, but maybe we can go in a little more. How can parents navigate sibling dynamics with younger kids when one child's heightened state sets off their neurodivergent sibling? And this, I think the interbrain was something a lot of people were talking about. What role does that play when there's multiple kids involved?
Well, good and bad, right? So the kids have they have an interbrain with you, but they also have an interbrain with each other. And so they said, I mean, look, for us, I mean, we lived this for years and years, where, if one is hyper aroused, it would set off the other goes hyper aroused. It only happens, by the way, when the kid is already in Thayer state 4, bottom right. That's when you're in for trouble. So we learned that there were times when you have to separate them. And that means physically separate them so that their limbic systems are not setting each other off. Now, what I wanted to say here was one of the things we learned in our clinic was parents tend to privilege rationality. What that means is you've got one kid now, either a neurotypical or another neurodivergent, who got set off by the other one. And we're going to explain to them. So we're going to tell them that, well, your brother or your sister is very sensitive or whatever. But you've got a problem. And the problem is that kid is hyper aroused. That kid is in red brain. In red brain, they are not processing anything you're saying. In fact, trying to explain things to a kid who's in red brain is a stress in itself. It heightens the stress load. So both kids need to be soothed. So what we would do is, first of all, we would separate them, and we were husband and wife. If it's a single parent, then hopefully there's someone you can call on for help, a grandparent, a cousin, whoever. But they both need to be soothed, and it's very hard to soothe them together. They will resonate limbic to limbic. They will resonate and keep each other in a heightened arousal state. Now, one of the problems for us was it meant that we couldn't do certain activities that other parents, just take for granted. So we tried several times going on trips, and that was a nightmare. Literally, it would end up with my wife having to sit in the back seat between the two of them. So we learned avoidance. What kinds of experiences were very difficult, especially when they were children. As they got older, by that I mean teens, then they were better able to separate themselves from what the other one was going through. Bear in mind, this is enormously stressful on you as a parent. And so, part of my concern here was for my own well-being, my wife's well-being too. And so for many years, we would not take trips. We would not, I remember one time I was getting an award for something, and we thought, how nice, bring the kids to this, and they can see dad up on the stage. Well, how stupid was I? Too many people, too much noise, too many strangers coming up to them. They're both freaking out. And so literally it ended up where mom had to take them out and wait till the damn thing was over. So, you learn through it. There is not a simple solution here. But the thing that I wanted to stress was our concern was that the children would become resources for each other when we weren't around, that they would be that source of comfort, etc. So I told you that story of the younger one hugging his brother was it last night or the night before? It happens. And if you said to me, like 12 years ago that I was going to say this, I'd say you're crazy. But it does happen. And provided that we don't ignore the needs of the other, if it's neurotypical, if it's another neurodivergent, we don't get angry, we don't, can't you see that, so all what they really need is they've been triggered, they need to be soothed in whatever way you can. And that way, one of those ancient survival systems comes back online and they will feel empathy for their sib. They will feel, but not when they are in red brain.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I explained that well enough, but yeah, I think you get the idea.
Yeah, no, and I think it's just also so validating and comforting, frankly, to hear your experience because you've been through it, and it's just really helpful.
Oh, my heart goes out to all of you. I know what it's like, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I mean, the two of them now are the greatest. They're 1922 now, and they are the biggest support system for each other. They go to each other now, not to me and my wife.
That's so inspiring. I want to also, I appreciate you mentioning how hard this is for parents. One of the comments that came up in our discussion board about the book was, well, no, but nobody helped me self-regulate as a child, and I really could have used help. I know this book is to help me parent my kids better, but it shed light on how much I was left to deal with really big, scary, hard feelings as a child. My parents would leave me behind or alone as punishment for being out of control when I was really just overstressed and overstimulated. This parent said she had a good cry and gave herself a deep hug. So just wanted to share that with you.
Well, thank you. Yes. I read a statistic the other day that just shocked me. So do you guys know what ACEs are, adverse childhood experiences?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So I read that 2/3 of the sort of extremists that you're seeing in the US right now, like not MAGA, but like the extremists like Proud Boys, that kind of thing, 2/3 of them had 4 or more ACEs.
Wow.
1/4 of all American kids, 25 to 34, have had 1 or more ACEs. So, yeah, I know. So, coming back to what you were asking me about the beginning, these epidemics that we're seeing, that mom that you just described, she's not alone. That mom is describing what, a generation lived through because the parents were they were immersed in behaviorist parenting theory where you mustn't, don't go to your child if they're crying, don't go to your child if they're waking up at night. And so part of what we're doing now as you know, what Susan's doing in the MEHRIT Centre is we're going around the world now trying to get parents to, break this damn cycle where, it just keeps on repeating itself. One of the messages that didn't come through loud enough in the book is that self-reg starts with self. Self-reg starts with your needs, and your needs as a parent of a neurodivergent kid are it's extraordinary, the amount of stress. It really is tough. And so we need self-care. We need others in our life. And I don't care who it is, but there has to be somebody that's there to give me support. That's why things like your book club are so incredibly important, because the members will support each other. One of the things we learned at Mary at our clinic was, of all the things we did, so we did a lot of therapy, and we asked our parents at the end of one year, they had to write these questionnaires, what was the single best thing that we did for you? And every single year we got the same answer. It was the groups that they joined where they supported each other. It was kind of depressing for us because they ranked that ahead of the therapy we were giving, but it's true.
Oh gosh. This is so powerful. First of all, we're coming to the end of the hour, and I have one last question I want to ask you. But first of all, I just want to thank you for everything you shared today. This is so powerful. I've taken a ton of notes. I know everyone's getting so much out of this, and just thank you for the work that you do. It fills all of us with so much hope. So
that's what I want you to feel.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I want you to feel.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So let me just ask you this question. At the end of the book, you Expect the Unexpected, you share a variety of considerations about how self-reg methods might or might not work, or they might stop working, or they might start working after a while, and that a lot of experimentation might be necessary. So this is a two-parter. How long might it take to discover that something that doesn't seem to be working actually does? Like, how long do we stick with something? And then do you have any favorite resources or like a list of things that we can try, any place you can direct us?
Okay, so answer the second one first. Go onto our website. There's lots of free stuff you can download, lots of stuff you can get. You can get sheets, you can get charts. And those are very valuable. Now, look, let me leave you with one of the big lessons I learned. Our older son was a hockey phenom. And that happens, stop and think about it. He's autistic. Of course, he's going to practice shooting a puck over and over and over. And he got really, really good. And so he got scouted when he was 12 years old. And so we got so excited. We had an NHL scout had come to see my 12-year-old play hockey. And he says to us afterwards, he says, well, your kid is 1 in 1,000. Unfortunately for us, we started to project. And what had happened was they started putting, I don't know when it happened, but it was too much pressure being put on him. You got to go out there and win the game for us, win the championship. And he didn't want to play hockey anymore. And we were devastated because, here you are, you could be this, this autistic wunderkind. So what did he want to do? What he wanted to do was he wanted to clean cars. Detailing. I don't know if you call it that in the US.
Detailing, yeah.
Okay, so he has a job now. As a matter of fact, he's detailing 3 big trucks. You never seen as happy a kid as when he's detailing. It makes sense, right? When he's detailing, he gets to perseverate on the tiniest little speck of dirt. He's all alone, so he's only got the truck, but he's happy. he comes home from a day of detailing. In a way, he's happy that he never was when he was playing hockey.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to ask myself, at what point am I actually thinking about what makes him happy? And at what point am I thinking about what makes me happy?
Mm-hmm.
And so living with, and by the way, I can just tell you that the same thing happened with the younger one. The younger one has severe ADHD. And it turns out that what he likes to do is he likes to clean motors. Okay. I went to Oxford. I wanted two kids who'd want to go to Oxford. Neither of them wants to go to Oxford. One wants to clean cars, the other one wants to fix them. But they're happy. And so, that question, I want to flip it a little bit. How long does it take? Well, how long did it take me to see them, to see their gifts, their joy, what brought them happiness? I think I'm at the point now where I actually see them and not myself. But it took me a while. My wife, not so much, but I was worse.
I just got chills when you said that. How long did it take me? Thank you. Thank you for sharing that story. And I just want to thank you again for taking the time to share with us today. You've gotten a lot of thanks in the chat, including for not retiring yet. So
you're welcome, everybody.
For that. And just know that you've got our community here to support and champion your work in whatever way we can. So thank you.
Okay, good luck, everybody, and good luck to you, Debbie.
You've been listening to the Tilt Parenting Podcast. To learn more about the resources mentioned in this Parent Lean-In episode, go to the extensive show notes page on tiltparenting.com. To submit a question for a future episode, just go to tiltparenting.com/lean-in. That's tiltparenting.com/LEANIN. If you're looking for personal support from me and connection with the phenomenal community of parents raising neurodivergent kids, join us in the recently rebooted Differently Wired Club. The new Differently Wired Club can help you cultivate the positive shifts you're hoping for. Go to tiltparenting.com/club to learn more. The Tilt Parenting Podcast is hosted by me, Debbie Reber, author of Differently Wired and the founder of Tilt Parenting. To support this show, please join my Patreon campaign where you can set up a small monthly contribution. Just go to patreon.com/tiltparenting to learn more. If you want to follow Tilt on social media, go to @tiltparenting on Instagram and Facebook. Lastly, please take a minute to leave a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. That helps this show stay visible so others can find it more easily. And that's all for this week. Stay safe, stay well, and take good care. And for more information about any of the parenting resources Tilt offers, visit tiltparenting.com.